If you watch MSNBC, CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, holy cow. It's like literally watching a marathon of the military-industrial complex the last 2 days. President Orange Orangutan does one good thing, and the people freak out. Bipartisan freak out. The Republicans are freaking out at him. The Democrats are freaking out at him. Because, war is good for business, right? So Trump apparently, without consulting anyone, just tweets that he's going to pull U.S. troops out of Syria immediately. There's 2,000 left there. Most sane people think that's a great thing. Why are we in Syria? Is there an urgent threat to the United States that we need 2,000 troops in Syria? And by the way, this stuff about, you're going to leave a vacuum for ISIS. By continually invading other countries, even if those countries are run by brutal dictators and terrible war criminals like Bashar al-Assad, because he is. What makes you think there's not another ISIS waiting in the wings, whether we stay or whether we go? ISIS wasn't created because we left Iraq. ISIS was created because we went to Iraq in the first place. So I woke up like really, really early. I don't know why. I woke up at like 4:30 in the morning. So I tossed and turned. Then I put on Morning Joe, and boy, Mika and Joe, they're not happy about this. They are not happy about this. Here we go.
The mainstream media has editorialized, Admiral, about Trump's Syria-Iran retreat. The Islamic State is not defeated, says the Wall Street Journal, and mullahs are delighted. A retreat in Syria is a sign of weakness, the Wall Street Journal concludes, that friends and foes will notice. And who is celebrating more about their early Christmas present than Vladimir Putin and Russia? And they've said as much. This is a massive geopolitical win for Putin and Russia.
It absolutely is, Joe. And, we've just gone through the season of firefight in California, and we've watched these massive, devastating blazes. What the president is doing is the functional equivalent of, we've gotten the fire contained, we're all around it, we've kind of built it down, but the embers are still smoldering, and now we're just going to leave. What do you think's going to happen? I think there's a pretty high chance we're going to see what we call in the Navy a reflash, where the fire comes back. So that's the tactical problem, is the Islamic State comes back. But as you point out correctly, the geopolitics of this are terrible. And it's not just Vladimir Putin doing high fives with the mullahs in Tehran. It's also the impact this will have on our Kurdish allies and friends in the region, who will see this as a betrayal. It'll be written globally as a walkaway and a betrayal. This is really geopolitically the worst move I've seen from this administration. That's a high bar to get over. That is a very high bar to get over. And if you look at Mika, who has helped here, it's a pretty simple list. ISIS has helped. Barack Obama and the United States, 70% of Americans wanted us to get out of Iran. It created a vacuum. ISIS went right into that vacuum. Then President Obama started in the last year fighting back and pushing back and put them back on their heels. Donald Trump continued that. But here we have ISIS, as the Wall Street Journal says, not defeated. So this is a big day for them. Iran.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God, these fucking idiots. Oh, just cursed. Demonetized. I just cursed. So, what Joe Scoundrel Barrow, Joe Scarborough, congratulations on your recent wedding to your lovely wife, Mika Brzezinski. No, I'm not making that up. They just got married. ISIS is never going to be defeated. We've been talking about defeating Al-Qaeda for the last 20 years. You're not going to defeat an idea, because terrorism is an idea based on hatred for America. And why do they hate America so much? Why do they hate America so much? Because we're invading their countries. We're stealing their minerals and their natural resources. We're killing innocent civilians in Syria, in Pakistan, in Yemen, in Afghanistan, in Iraq. Now, that doesn't mean it is okay to be a terrorist or murder innocent Americans or innocent people anywhere. But you have to look at the root cause of what created ISIS in the first place. It wasn't leaving Iraq. It was going into Iraq and destroying that country in the first place. You know, Lindsey Graham, his head is about to explode. He's so upset about this. And, you know, his partner in crime, rest in peace, John McCain, another war criminal, he's not here to rant against this. But, you know, he never knew a war he didn't love. So, you know, oh, if we leave, we're going to leave a vacuum because they keep saying there's like 15 to 20,000 more ISIS. Well, don't you think that there's another ISIS, maybe born out of Syria, that's very angry that the United States has invaded part of their country for years? What do you think? You just like kill the remaining 20,000 ISIS and then that's it? What do they think? You're just going to like stay in Syria indefinitely? We'll kill every last one of them and then there's not going to be any ramifications for invading Syria? You know, to be honest with you, you know, Trump actually, I don't know what his intentions are. He probably is trying to remove troops out of Syria to distract from all these investigations into him. So whatever his intentions are, they're probably not noble. But he's right. Why are we using our money and our troops to fight a war for other countries? But I don't understand, like, oh, it's a Christmas gift for Vladimir Putin. So what if Vladimir Putin likes it or doesn't like it? Why are we in Syria? How long do these people want to stay? What do they think is going to happen even if you kill every last one of the ISIS members? Guess what? They regenerate because you can't kill an idea. ISIS is not just a group, an army. It's an idea. You can't kill an idea. The only way that you could stop this idea of hating America from spreading and continuing to regenerate, you know, it's Al-Qaeda, it's the Taliban, it's Hezbollah, then it's ISIS, and then there's going to be another one, and then there's going to be another one after you kill that one, because you keep invading other countries and seizing their countries and stealing their minerals and stealing their natural resources. I mean, we're not in Afghanistan because it's a threat to America. We're in Afghanistan for their opium and poppy. Let's call it like it is. Let's try this experiment. Pull our troops out of these countries and let's see if terrorism recedes. I think we all know it would recede, but it's not about an urgent threat to the United States. It's about the money. Follow the money, Lebowski. I mean, Jesus, it wasn't just Morning Joe either. Here we go.
In the Trump administration includes the words defeat ISIS. But while at home, the president's move was met with anger, Putin celebrated. You know, of course, Putin has been fighting against the United States in Syria and with U.S. rivals, including President Trump's boogeyman Iran. And in response to Trump's move today, Putin's foreign affairs spokeswoman went on television to say the presence of American troops in Syria was an obstacle to peace. She said, quote, a very important story that may follow from this decision is a real prospect for a political settlement. The Russians are happy. And Trump's decision to go against his own Defense Department, right, his own defeat ISIS envoy, and his own party, and with Putin, rendered his vice president mute.
Mr. Vice President, do you believe the remarks in Syria? Do you stand by what you said to the members of the Senate?
Nothing to say. Caitlin Collins is out front at the White House. And Caitlin, you know, look, the president makes this announcement on Twitter and then says nothing to anybody all day and is afraid to take questions, it looks like now, putting out a video, right, where he was safe and secure from anyone asking him anything. And I want to go now to Republican Congressman Mike Turner, who sits on both the House Armed Services and Intelligence Committees. I appreciate your time, Congressman. Can I just ask you, as Caitlin's saying some of these questions, have you, as a member of Armed Services, been briefed on how many troops have already come home and on the timeline? I mean, has the President shared all this information with you?
Well, as you know, Aaron, no one has been briefed, which of course is part of the consternation that is happening here on Capitol Hill. You know, we have discussed before, you can't run foreign policy. You certainly shouldn't run troop deployment through Twitter. There are processes, there are implications.
It's like you stole their lunch money. I literally saw one person, one congressman that they had on that was in agreement with Trump. The rest, it was like a Hall of Fame, a former FBI, CIA, Homeland Security, saying how this is the end of the world. End of the world. Zachary, sign their children up for infantry and then they could talk. Right, because it's always a distant thing. You know, Lindsey Graham loves talking about 2,000. Lindsey Graham says 2,000 troops in Syria is nothing. Yeah, try telling that to their families. By the way, you don't think the troops in Syria right now, the U.S. troops in Syria right now are ecstatic to get to come the hell home? You think they want to be there? Now, I'm not against human intervening in the case of genocide. I think the United States should be intervening on the behalf of the Yemenis. I think the United States should have intervened in the case of the Holocaust. You know, the extremes. I'm not talking about permanent ground troops, but I do think we have a role to play around the world, especially when genocide is happening. But the Syrian civil war, I'm sorry, I think it's terrible, and I think there was a role to play in the past, but I don't think having a permanent U.S. ground troop force there. And do you notice that none of them, not one of these people today, I could show you 25 other clips, not one of them said, well, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for keeping the troops in Syria indefinitely? How are you going to pay for keeping the troops in Afghanistan till we're all dead indefinitely? How are you going to pay for it? You know, we only talk about how you're going to pay for it when it's Medicare for all or college for everyone or things that actually will help us. I think his base, and frankly, not just his base, but progressives agree with this. Doesn't mean progressives are going to vote for Donald Trump, but... And I keep, you know, people have been saying on Twitter, like, you're leaving a vacuum for the Russians and Russian influence and Iranian influence. Well, do we go to war and keep troops in places because there's an urgent threat to the United States? Or do we go to war and invade other countries because we want to have more influence in that region than Iran and Russia? Which one is it? Because where I come from, and I never served, and I wouldn't serve, but where I come from, you're supposed to go to war or invade countries or do something like that because there's an imminent threat to your nation and your people, not to have more influence in a region across the globe. And when they say more influence, they're really talking about business influence, business interest. You know, it's hysterical, and it really tells you something. It really tells you something. You know, you will never see Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN agree on anything. But even Fox News is out of their mind. Fox and Friends host, what's-his-face, Brian Kilmeade, he went nuclear on Trump this morning. Absolutely nuclear about this. So there's one thing that everyone could agree on. The right-wingers, the left-winger, well, I wouldn't even call MSNBC or CNN real left-wingers. The corporate propagandists. War is good for business. We don't want peace. Peace is bad for business. And by the way, none of these journalists asked Lindsey Graham, is the United States at risk of an urgent attack from Syria? Because if it's not, why are we there? Are we are we in Afghanistan because there's an imminent threat to the United States? Or are we in Afghanistan to steal their poppy, to steal their, well, there's a lot of heroin too, to steal their natural resources and to have influence in the region? Because I don't want to pay my tax dollars. I don't know if you want to pay your tax dollars to have influence in the region, which is code for we have business interests. And it's good for American business, i.e. Boeing, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman. Breaking news. Breaking news. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis is resigning. or retiring, shall I say. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis is retiring, presumably because of Trump pulling out of Syria. So the neocons are roaring. General Mattis will be retiring with distinction at the end of February after having served my administration as Secretary of Defense for the past 2 years. During Jim's tenure, tremendous progress has been made, especially with respect to the purchase of new fighting equipment. Of course, that's all Trump cares about. Money. General Mattis was a great help to me in getting allies and other countries to pay their share of military obligations. A new Secretary of Defense will be named shortly. I greatly thank Jim for his service. So, pretty sure that Jim Mattis went to Trump and said, I'm out. I'm out. Over Syria. Because he's a neocon just like the rest of them. He's a neocon just like the rest of them. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. All of this because he's pulling 2,000 troops out. 2,000 troops. The Secretary of Defense is going to resign, and I don't like Mattis. He's a neocon. You know, Morning Joe's, their head is going to explode. Lindsey Graham's going to have a coronary. 2,000 troops. What's going to happen if we ever pull out of Afghanistan? And let's talk about the victims here in America. Let's talk about the people who have no heat in their house because there's no investments in America. Let's talk about the people that are hungry. Let's talk about the people who have no education. Let's talk about the people who are riddled in debt. Let's talk about the people who are dying because they have no access to health care. There are real threats. There's an imminent threat to America. You know who it is? The United States government. But you know what? When you continually invade other countries, when you're an imperialist country, you're not going to just get rid of terrorists by staying in perpetuity in other people's countries. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if any other country tried to invade this country and stick around? Do you think we would stand for that? I mean, NATO has rockets on Russia's border coming from Turkey. Could you imagine? You can imagine, because that's what the Cuban Missile Crisis was all about. There were missiles pointed at us from Cuba, Russian missiles. We were about to have nuclear war. So, you know what? To the neocons freaking out, you know, Wolf Blitz is very upset about this. Everybody's upset. Because I tweeted earlier, like literally CNN and MSNBC, it looks like a 24/7 press release for the military-industrial complex right now. There is zero balance. I don't think I've seen one congressman that they had on that agreed with Trump. They don't have anti-war voices on, and there's millions of anti-war voices who think this is a good thing.